The Myanmar military has extended its state of emergency by 6 more months, ensuring its grip on absolute power until at least the end of July. Elections cannot be held during this period, and planned polls can only take place after that. That's assuming, of course, that no further extension of the state of emergency happens. A state media says more has to be done before it can successfully hold a general election. It's highlighting the need for peace and stability so that it can conduct free and fair polls. While the military has referred to elections taking place this year, no date has been specified. The state of emergency has not been lifted since the February 1st coup almost 4 years ago. This plunged the country into civil war. Opposition groups have pledged to violently disrupt the polls, which they condemn as an attempt to legitimise the military regime. And more, we're joined by CNA's Leong Wai Kit. Wai Kit, the army, or the military government rather, saying it needs the time to ensure it has the conditions to hold what it promises will be a free and fair election. It does have a point, does it not?
Well, if you look at it this way, it is now buying time. Buying time to do what? Some are saying buying time to legitimize elections, but by and large, the junta is really buying time to consolidate control because they have no control over the legitimacy of the elections. The NUG had recently published some data saying that out of all townships in Myanmar, 30% are under the control of the junta. But that's in the context of townships. Earlier, I spoke to Dr. Mo Tuza, who's from the IC's Yusof Ishak Institute, and she made another point. And she said that, look, out of 14 regional command centers, command divisions, the junta still have control of 12 such centers, which means to say in terms of firepower, the military still has it. Now, the question is, when you hold elections, it has to be across the country. Even before the military coup, there have been cases where certain villages, certain wards can't have elections because of ongoing fighting due to the civil war. But now, if you're looking at these percentages, 30% versus 70%, it's quite unlikely that elections can be held throughout the country. So I asked Mo Tuza earlier, what kind of impact this command and control would have on the elections? Let's take a listen.
All this reveals to me the implausibility of the State Administration Council's efforts to orchestrate an election, but also it seems quite intent to push ahead with it. So even so, I think we have to be careful that the SAC's election narrative continues to maybe seize the attention of some external interlocutors. And so it's important that members of the international community, including Myanmar's neighbors, send a consistent message of concern related to the safety of the people and the will of the people in Myanmar in relation to any projected elections organized by a military regime that has experienced pushback against it since the coup in 2021.
Of course, it's interesting, this notion of control. So you said you cannot control legitimacy. No, you cannot. Legitimacy is earned. So they have to show these elections are fair so that other parties, whether ASEAN or the global community, can then look ahead and say, well, we recognize the results of this election, whatever those results might be. And one of the, I suppose, preconditions for anyone accepting results is that the government right now, the military government, has to work with, for example, civilian governments like the one it overthrew in the coup. Now, you spoke to the son of the deposed leader, that's Aung San Suu Kyi, and he had a great deal to say, did he not?
Yeah, I mean, the chat was mainly revolving around Aung San Suu Kyi. Of course, the biggest concern that he has, that the world has, is her health. He says she's not getting any healthier. She's nearly 80 this year. So that's the biggest concern. The biggest mystery is her whereabouts. Up to today, I'm getting contradicting reports from sources. Some tell me that she's in jail. Some say she's under house arrest. Some say she's been moved from jail to an army barrack because of the electricity situation. But Kim Aris was very firm. He believes that his mum, Aung San Suu Kyi, is still in jail. Let's take a listen to what he said.
As far as I'm aware, she's definitely in prison rather than house arrest. Many people think she's still under house arrest or that she was moved to house arrest. But that isn't the case as far as I know. And she's been held apart from the other prisoners, so essentially she's in solitary confinement. I think I would have heard that if she had been moved, the military would have made more of that. They would have made sure that everybody knew that she was under house arrest.
You know, this time last year, Kim Aris actually received a letter from Aung San Suu Kyi. He confirmed it. It was in her handwriting, but there's not much she can say in the letter because, you know, it will be read by the junta. But it did talk about love, family, her health condition. And I asked him earlier, because when we spoke, the junta had already officially announced another 6 more months of extension. And for him, it's another 6 more months of uncertainty over his mum's whereabouts. And I asked him what he plans to do in the next 6 months. He says he wants to continue to bring attention to the plight of her mother, as well as to the Myanmar people. He wants to raise funds for for Myanmar. And I asked him his message for the junta, and it's very clear. Release my mother, release all political prisoners, and return democracy back to people who have voted resoundingly for the NLD.
Of course, Kim Aris will have his hopes, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. The look ahead, right, Wai Kit? So this extension of the state of emergency is until end July. Okay. Since, and I was speaking to you earlier, since at least October 2023, militarily, the military administration has been, I suppose, on the back foot. So it's defense, not offense. In 6 months, not that military is everything, there's also diplomatic space. Do you see any kind of advancement to give the administration the space to hold the elections and have the control it needs to have to hold those elections?
You are putting me on the spot. Now, I can tell you that there is concerted effort by the junta to want to engage diplomatically. What I cannot tell you is whether or not those actions will bear fruit. Now, in the next few months, fighting is set to subside, mainly because of change in climate. During wet season from June to October, typically fighting does not continue because it doesn't make logistics and military sense to do that. But there may still be pockets of fighting. But during this time, when the fighting is set to subside, that's when perhaps Myanmar army can drum up diplomatic efforts. If you recall, in late 2021, ASEAN was very firm. Junta Chief Army Chief Min Aung Hlaing and Foreign Minister cannot sit with us in meetings. That was 2021. You fast forward to now in recent months, it's a near 180-degree change because out of 10 ASEAN countries, 5 have already started openly engaging with Army Chief Min Aung Hlaing. So we also asked Motuza for her views. Will these engagements undermine or complement? Her answer was simply this. It will undermine the efforts of ASEAN if these ASEAN leaders allow the Myanmar army to be the main stakeholder. But it will complement ASEAN's efforts if each of these leaders bring with them ASEAN's collective efforts and sentiments and tell the army chief, end violence, free political prisoners.
All right, so it's a very balanced answer, Wai Kit. So in fact, you've qualified, you've neither said anything is happening and you've given good reasons. Thanks for that. And we'll be bringing you back when I'm sure this state of emergency reaches the end of this one in July. CNA's Leong Wai Kit joining us there.